Do you dream of fairies and princesses? Then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and today on the show, my friend Mark from Yesterworld Entertainment is joining me to discuss the live-action reimagining of Mulan. It's been a long road and a long wait to finally see this finished movie, but was the wait worth it? We discuss it all right after this. If you're a fan of the character Mulan, you should check out the Twisted Tales story, Reflection. Disney's Twisted Tales takes the much-beloved Disney stories and tells the tale from a different angle, often heading in directions you may not expect. And guess what? You can get this audiobook Twisted Tale along with the others for free by visiting audibletrial.com/DCTC. There are so many different free titles waiting for you. Just visit audibletrial.com/DCTC.
Grab some popcorn and silence your cell phones, 'cause it's time for the Disney Movie Review.
Hello, Mark, and welcome back to Disney Coast to Coast. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks for having me back. It's been a while. Lots of craziness in the world since the last time I was on.
Things have changed. In fact, you were scheduled to be on a long time ago, back when the live-action Mulan was supposed to be in theaters in March. And, today we're talking about Mulan, the live-action, the animated one. And, I just want to start this off by saying I don't want to kick a horse when it's down, but there's a lot of problems. I haven't talked to you about this at all.
Right.
So I really don't know where you stand.
I'm coming from the point of view that, a lot of people are like, how is this true? How can this be? But I watched it as a kid, but I didn't grow up with it. I know I saw it in theaters. I know I had it, but it's not like Aladdin or The Lion King or Pinocchio or even Snow White or those where I watched it, over and over again. More so like Lion King and Aladdin, where I was obsessed with both of those and still am. So I don't even have as much passion towards, we'll get into the new one, but even despite its many issues, I didn't feel I wasn't angry. I wasn't this is a tragedy or this is an abomination, because I didn't grow up with Mulan. So the changes didn't hit that kind of chord with me. I could watch it and be it's kind of dumb. All right, this is fine. I'm bored out of my mind, but okay, whatever. So I wasn't like Aladdin where I'm why'd they do that? The whole time.
You weren't as protective of the property.
Right.
And, I was kind of in the same place with Mulan, although I will say I really like the movie, but to this day, I have never seen the animated film on the big screen. I've never seen Mulan on the big screen. It was one of those movies. What year was it? Do you know the animated one?
97, 98.
That sounds about right. So that would have been, I was in my high school years. I wasn't running to the theater to see most Disney animated films at that point. But the thing that got me to see it finally was I was going on a Walt Disney World vacation. And I just remember being oh gosh, I should probably catch up a little bit on what's being offered here, what's going to be offered in the park. I've never seen Mulan. I should probably watch it. And I remember watching it that night before flying to Florida, and actually really being impressed with it, liking it a lot more than I expected to. But once again, it's not one like Aladdin, Beauty and the Beast, Little Mermaid, where I know every single moment of the film.
And for a lot of people, it is. So that's why I totally understand the people that are infuriated by it. Because I thought, as I was watching it, I kept thinking okay, if I was a fan of it, I would be so mad at this. Or if I was a fan of, if I grew up on it, I would be so pissed right now. So it's It was a weird kind of disconnect where I could see what everyone's talking about, but because it just wasn't like an Aladdin or a Lion King or even I think I probably watched Hercules more than I did Mulan. It just, I don't know. I don't know why. It's probably a cliche because I'm a guy. And so it was more geared towards the female audience maybe, but and actually rewatched Mulan yesterday for the first time since I was like a kid, and I really enjoyed it. Still wouldn't be in the top tier for me, but it was a lot funnier than I remembered it, and I thought the songs were more catchy than I guess I remembered. All I could remember was like the Make a Man Out of You and Reflections, but the other ones I was like, these are actually pretty good.
The music is really good, and I think it's David Zippel, and I think he's the lyricist, and I forget the composer's name, but I don't know if they did much more with Disney, to be honest. And it's great music, I think. I don't think the music was received very well when it came out. At least Reflection was not like a mega hit or anything, and I think it's a fantastic
Well, you're coming
song.
off of all these like huge Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Lion King, so it makes sense that it kind of... Because I think that was near the end of the Renaissance. I always get confused what technically ended the Renaissance era. I think it was
To me, it's
Treasure.
Lion King. I
94.
think like the last one in the to me it goes, there was Mermaid, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, and that's like in my mind the official Disney animation Renaissance. And then to me, there's the second Renaissance. A lot of people would say it started with Frozen. To me, it started with Tangled. But I'm probably in the minority there.
After Lion King, there was a period where it's like the post-Renaissance era where I think it's Tarzan, that's what I've been told, is Tarzan was officially the last of the Renaissance era. But then again, that's also when they started implementing way more CG, so I don't know. It's like there's no right or wrong answer.
Now let's talk about, the live action Mulan has been in the news quite a bit. So let's just talk about it before we even get into anything. Obviously, the theatrical delays were crazy. Obviously, we're in the middle of something unprecedented at the moment, so it had to be delayed. The thing I don't understand is when this all started, like from day one, Disney was like, okay, Jungle Cruise is moving a year ahead. We're going to summer of 2021 for Jungle Cruise. And I just don't get why they didn't do that with Mulan, why they kept saying no. I think they tried 3 times for theatrical releases until they finally said Disney Plus Premium, essentially.
If I were to guess, I think they knew that it was going to be pretty controversial.
Don't you think it belongs on the big screen?
I guess. I think they kind of knew between, not to get into everything, but with what was going on, they knew that behind the scenes, it was just going to build up because you can look at the credits online and see, where they shot. And I think they just knew, like, okay, we got to get ahead of this, release it, get as many people to watch it right now, because if we do it in a year, who knows what the situation is going to be like over, with what's going on, and maybe it would cause riot. I don't know. Like, I feel like it was just kind of they knew it wasn't going to be a huge smash hit like Aladdin was or Lion King. So I think they were like, okay, and it's also an experiment. It's like, well, if we're going to try this and see how this model works, let's do it with Mulan, because it's probably not going to do amazing numbers, and it's probably going to be even more controversial and, have people build up their anger towards it.
That's interesting, because I actually was under the impression that the company thought it was going to be a big hit once again. And, here's the interesting thing about Disney Plus. We won't get those numbers the way that we would get box office numbers.
They could say whatever.
They can say whatever they want or say nothing. So we really don't know. I don't think there will be guesses out there, but it's not going to be like box office numbers. So that's interesting. But just to touch on some of the controversy with this film, the lead actress apparently has been accused of supporting police brutality, which obviously is a big deal right now. And then it was, I'm going to say this wrong, but it was filmed in Xinjiang province. Did I say that right? Or Xinjiang province. And
I'm not even going to try to correct your pronunciation.
Yeah, so,
I'm like the king of bad pronunciation.
But this is where, essentially they have re-education camps, as they call them.
Yeah.
And
it's a pretty messy, disgusting situation going on over there.
Yeah. So like the fact that they have a special thanks in the credits is a problem. And because of that, now the Chinese government has banned media coverage of the film. And, obviously China was one of the biggest markets for this film. So they got a lot going against it. And then on top of that, I didn't really care for the film that much. It sounds like you were pretty on the fence.
I just found myself constantly being like, Like I said, I was bored most of it. Yeah. And maybe it's because I had watched the original the day before. a lot of the changes didn't like bother me, but it was more like, why?
Yeah.
Like they didn't make sense. They weren't like, it wasn't like Aladdin where the changes, even if I wasn't a huge fan of Aladdin, where they were just like, I felt more strongly, I guess, or anyone would have felt. I just felt the changes like didn't make sense. I was like, why even do that? It's not making it better or worse. It's just to change it.
I would say I think some of the changes were worse. Let's start very much at the beginning.
Yeah.
One change that was fabulous was I was surprised, although I shouldn't have been. This totally makes sense. But the Disney Castle opening was the Shanghai Disney Castle. Yeah. That was pretty awesome. I was like, that fun idea. I really like that. I still suggest that they should have just a feed of all of their different castle openings available on Disney Plus. I think that would be great. I love it. But, I think the big thing that a lot of people are talking about, and I was definitely thought this when I was watching it, was we see Mulan as a young child in the live action film, which
she's Mary Sued.
She's what?
Mary Sued, or Mary Sue, where the character just is perfect, already knows how to do everything. She's
Yeah. What is that reference though, Mary Sue?
I don't know. I always hear it. I think it has to do with like old TV shows where it's like Mary Sue, the perfect, high school cheerleader, gotcha. Excellent in her classes, where, and obviously not to jump ahead, but it's really like okay, I really don't care if someone begins like fully trained, like better than everyone. And then the whole premise is like, no, you gotta shut that down. And she doesn't really have to earn anything. It's just a matter of deciding to reveal it. It's not like she had to work on her chi or work on improving her. I mean, that was the biggest thing to me, that if I were to say something got to me in like more of an emotional way where I was kind of upset, was that where I was like, well, now this movie has no message. Like it has a message, but it's not. It's the message of don't work for anything, or it's very muddled where they're trying to go that way. But then she ends up just using her chi that she's always had since she was a little girl to, get the water buckets up. I know I'm jumping ahead, but that was
no, that's fine.
Thing.
Listen, it's all over the place here, but I completely agree with you. It's problematic, and the thing so when it comes to these live action remakes, let's face it, Disney does a ton of them, or the reimaginings, please. They do a ton of them, and sometimes you hear one and you're like, I could see where that could be interesting, and then other times it's like Mulan. The thing I think that's most disappointing for me was when I heard, hey, we're doing Mulan, I actually thought to myself, that sounds like a great one. Like that film has the option of being very realistic, and like that was an interesting to me. And even when they were like, hey, we're gonna get rid of the music, it's not gonna be a musical, as much as I love musicals and as much as I love the music in Mulan, I was like, I can see that if you're going for realism and not fantasy. But like immediately,
that didn't bother me, because I was like, I don't want another Beauty and the Beast situation where, in my opinion, Emma Watson cannot sing to save her life. And the musical numbers do not translate well because it's animation. Like you can do so much, and I didn't want to see that happen again. So I was like, okay, I guess I understand why they're just going to drop it and not even try to, elevate it with musical numbers.
I would have appreciated that more if they had gone for realism. But when from the second you start, you have this superhuman, superhero sort of child running on rooftops, chasing a chicken. And then later you have characters like running up walls, defying gravity, and doing this stuff that I'm like, okay, well, the realism's out the door. So if it's a fantasy, give me these phenomenal musical numbers, because at that point I did miss them.
And here's what I wrote, because I want to make sure I didn't miss it, but I wrote down some notes. I wrote, was she not supposed to be born with chi? Because the whole thing, they're like, no, you're not a boy, you're not supposed to have chi. So was it an accident? Are women born with chi, but they're supposed to suppress it? Like what's not that maybe they didn't think about it either, but I kept thinking like, okay, is it that she's special because she was born with it, that only men are supposed to have it? Or is it that every woman that is born with it has to suppress it because they're not a man?
Now, you're talking about a hot button topic for me, and that is just the whole message of suppressing your skills, your talents, your desires. Like, I get that, like, by the end of the movie, they're saying, no, you shouldn't do that. But just even listening to characters talk about it, like, no, you must do the traditional way of things, and you must... it infuriates me to a level that is illogical when I watch, even in the animated film. I'm like...
It was just very on the nose in this one. Like, I think I was starting to count, like, how many times it was, like, just, like, we get it. We understand. Disney's not good at subtext anymore, or subtext, I guess, or subtlety.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a lot of movies, and even TV shows. I won't go into my rant on that, where TV shows and movies nowadays don't trust the audience to be smart. So it's like, even if something happens in an episode and then 30 minutes later they call back to it, they have to do a flashback. It's like, I just saw that 30 minutes ago. I don't need a recap of the scene I just watched 20 minutes ago. So I think in general, filmmakers, or maybe it's the studios, are like, no, we have to make sure they understand. Like, we get it. We're intelligent.
You're talking about my biggest pet peeve. This is a bit of a tangent, but when it comes to Disney nighttime spectaculars, I can't stand when I have like a 14-minute show, which is like a montage of something, and then at the end they recap everything that they just montaged to like remind you what you just saw. I'm like, I literally just saw it 10 minutes ago. What are you doing to me here?
For me, if it's a kids movie, sure, kids are attention spans or whatever, but I think it was Watchmen when I was watching that, and so many times they would have something happen, and then either in the same episode or like 20 minutes later, the character would like look to the side and be thinking, and it's like, we get it. Just from that, that's all we need. But then they would do an actual flashback to what happened like that. But anyways, but to my question, did I miss it? That women, you know what I mean? Like, is she like special for being the only woman who, her and the Eagle Girl, for being born with chi, and she wasn't supposed to be born with it? Yeah, or is it just that women are able to, but they're always supposed to suppress it?
My impression was that not everybody's born with it. She had special skills that most women did not. I don't know if it was necessarily a thing where they were saying, oh, every guy has it. I don't think that's the case.
It's just the whole time I'm like, this is just confusing. Like, it's not even supposed to be that big of a part of the movie at first, but my brain goes in like, well, that isn't... I felt like that needed maybe like a little prologue, like in the beginning.
Or maybe, how about don't give her superpowers? Like, that works
that too. That, make her actually have to earn her respect at the end, instead of just being like, hey, I have magical powers, and that's what makes me special. I didn't have to work for it or earn it.
Yeah, you can't blame them to a point, because let's face it, superhero movies are like some of the biggest movies in the world. So it seems like it was a choice to head in that direction. Definitely a board member decision. Yeah. Superpowers. Give her superpowers. Well, no, that doesn't really work. Give her superpowers. Yeah. It definitely seems like a spreadsheet decision where somebody saw, oh, this movie did well, that had superpowers, put it in there. Yeah. I don't know. I just can't imagine that somebody was like, that's what they got from translating from the original. And listen, I'm not saying I want a carbon copy of the original either. I don't know. It took
That's where I will give Disney a little credit, I guess, is that like I said, I thought it was like fine, and actually enjoyed parts of it more, I guess, visually. I thought it was very, other than like I tweeted out today, that one thing that has bothered me in every Disney remake that they keep doing, where they're in a battlefield and their clothes are fresh, they were just taken out of the laundry. There's no dirt on them. And that's how Aladdin was. That's how, Jungle Book. Yeah, Jungle Book was the same way, where they're in the jungle. There's like no dirt. Like, just drove me crazy. Like, their uniforms at the end of the battle are just like perfect. You can like see a piece of lint, and there's no dirt. So I guess I give them credit for not butchering it, although some people would probably say they butchered it. But to me, I didn't watch it and go like, this is a disaster. It was just more of like perplexing decisions,
To me, by the end of it, I was like, I never need to see this again.
I mean, either. Like, I'm oddly indifferent because I didn't grow up with it. But I guess I just don't understand why they had to get rid of Mushu, right? Mushu.
Mushu. Here's the thing. I didn't miss Mushu. I didn't miss the cricket. Things like that I didn't miss. And but it was the music that really, and it was even a tease because we'd hear little moments of reflection in the background or something. But then, I don't know, I just wanted more with the music since they kind of went in a fantasy direction. And, I'll Make a Man Out of You is one of the greatest Disney songs ever. And when they got to that,
it though, he's like, "I'll make a man out of you." Cue that. I'm glad you brought that up because that was at first I was like, I really like that they're incorporating the musical numbers into the score. Which, again, I'm horrible with the name of the song, but in the original Mulan where it's dun 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 dun, like you hear that in the score. I'm like,
honor
cool.
to us all, I think.
Yeah,
you'll bring honor to us all.
So it's like, okay, this isn't a musical, but it's a nice little hearkening back to it.
Sure.
But then they abandon it for the Make a Man Out of You because you don't even hear even a hint of that. But then they bring it back, and then so it's like, do one or the other. Either you're writing a completely original composition, or you're going to harken back. And of all the ones to harken back to, I think it's because I think nowadays that would be deemed as a toxic masculinity. They'll make a man out of you. And it's very, I just feel like nowadays, like, I think that's part of the reason why they got rid of maybe some of the songs and why they made some of the changes, because everything gets nitpicked. Yeah. And so I don't know, maybe not. But
they got bigger problems. I mean, when it comes to political stuff with this film, but
that song would not work well. I mean,
I'm not gonna lie. As I was rewatching,
why do you have to do that to be a man? Why do you have to do that to be? Because then it sends a bad message that boys or men who aren't big and strong and big muscle, like it just. I kept thinking like this would not work today. In terms of people not going on a Twitter rant and saying, this is promoting toxic masculinity, which I'm not going to, maybe it is. I think you can't make those kind of movies anymore with that kind of stuff because people get so upset.
Yes, I don't disagree with you that people would get upset about something like that. I definitely, as I was rewatching the animated film, I did think to myself in certain moments, I'm like, gosh, I don't know if this could be made today. And we all think back to older stuff like Lady and the Tramp or whatever it may be, Song of the South.
Song of the South.
And it's always, old stuff we think of. And yes, Mulan in the long run is kind of old at this point. It's over 20 years, right? Yeah. So it's kind of, it's old, but not in comparison. So not that long ago, Disney was making these movies and they were totally accepted. So it is interesting to go back and watch these quote unquote newer movies.
You couldn't be like, slap him on the butt. That shows that you're a man. Cause that's promoting, it's like, that's, I don't want to get into it because it's a very, there's not always a right or wrong, but I think the problem, and I was going to bring this up with the Academy Award now having these like stipulations that your movie have to have, the amount of amazing films of the past that would not qualify.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing because I'm all for having more inclusivity and diversifying your cast and crew. I'm all for that. But as soon as you're saying, someone had a really good comparison where they said it's like telling an artist what colors he has to use to paint a picture.
Yeah.
And what, like it has to be this size, these colors, but not these colors. It's not really art anymore. Then you're just making a movie to get into the Academy Awards.
Yes.
And again, not saying that those are bad things to include. They're good things, but they should be
encouraged, not forced.
Yeah, they should come from the requirements of the story. I don't like it when something's forced into something because of like it should be organic. Yeah.
Here's the thing. People are going to be offended, and I just think like we need to be okay with being offended sometimes in certain scenarios. Obviously, not to an extreme, but we're not all going to like everything, right? There's stuff I'm offended by, and you know what I do? I don't watch it. I mean,
well, that's the problem. That's why I think comedians are eventually going to be out of a job, or not literally, but because you really can't say anything to push the boundary anymore because you don't know who's going to be there and defend. And but going back to the original point, as I was watching the original Mulan, not saying that I agree with it. I'm just saying like I kept thinking that wouldn't work. Nope, couldn't do that. Nope, couldn't say that. And so I think that's why these remakes are tricky because they're like, again, I imagine them in like a boardroom having it all on like a whiteboard or something. Like, okay, is this, pull this? Is this, no, can't say this. Okay, so we'll change this. Like, it's become like a again, like you can't, you're more focused on not offending people versus doing a true adaptation. And I guess I don't understand, but I've read that that's why a lot of the elements of Mulan were taken out, like the dragon, Mushu or Mushu? It's Mushu.
Mushu, M-U-S-H-U.
Like, I know him as, but like, I didn't understand how that's offensive to Chinese culture or Japanese culture, but I guess that's what I was told, that for some reason that was some sort of cultural appropriation or something.
It is interesting, though, watching these back, and I had similar thoughts to you. I never really heard that about I'll Make a Man Out of You, and here's one. I mean, it's a song that I feel like people go back to a lot. In fact, Disney did themselves recently at the beginning of this pandemic when they were doing those sing-alongs on TV. They had Donny Osmond come on and sing that very song.
Or maybe I'm wrong. I guess when I saw it, I was like...
I don't disagree with you. I think you make some valid points. But it's... it's a very popular song that I've never actually seen somebody complain about, like on social media or anything. But when you actually pull away the layers, it's like it could be problematic these days. So,
well, that was my only thought when that was like one of the only ones they didn't harken back to. I was like,
but even still, if you're just playing the melody in the background and not singing the lyrics like they did with every other song, like I don't think that that's something you can get upset about, is it?
Maybe I was just upset because I wanted to hear it. I'm like, of all the things, because I really do like that song legitimately.
Yes.
And I was like, you harken back to everything else, but you don't that. But one thing I will say that's positive, because there's not, like you said, there's not much. I will say that this version had me feeling more empathy towards the father.
Yes.
I really felt for him.
Yes. The scene where they come to, get the men to volunteer.
Like, I felt emotional, like as someone who grew up with impediments and stuff. I don't know, like for some reason I felt this version maybe not better, because it's hard to do that. And I don't know, maybe I would say they did it better. I just felt more empathy to his situation.
Yeah.
And his like, you're just like, It got me. That was like the only moment that got me in the whole movie.
Well, I also felt they dealt with that scene better when they came and they said, we need one boy from every family. And he came forward, and even, the guy demanding this was like, you don't have a son. There's nobody. Whereas in the animated film, it was kind of like not even touched upon the fact that this man should not be going into battle, let alone like, I mean, in reality, the guy would never make it through boot camp, right?
Yeah, he can't even walk. So that, I felt way more empathy towards the father, and that was really the only emotional moments I had in the entire movie, honestly. Yeah,
I agree that they did deal with that very well. And part of it is we got to spend time with that character, right? We got to see him dealing with his daughters at a younger age. And one other thing I did not miss at all between the animated and the live action was, like, you were talking about Mushu and stuff, but like the ancestor ghosts, I'm glad they decided to keep that out of the live action. That would have felt silly to me.
Yeah, it wouldn't have worked. And that's probably why they got rid of Mushu and the cricket, even though they have a character named Cricket, because maybe it just wouldn't have translated well. And that kind of goes back to my whole stance of why are we even remake? Like, if something doesn't lend, I don't know, it's hard, because when you grow up watching something and loving characters and then you completely get rid of them for the remake, you're kind of ostracizing your audience a bit,
I guess. But I don't know, they're making it for a new audience. I feel like that's why I did like the idea of Mulan being done, because I did feel like this one could be very different but still feel natural, like going for more realism, which is I thought is where they were going. To me, that made sense. So
but then you're left with really no comedic relief.
True.
Like,
yes,
that's the thing. Like, I never laughed.
But that's okay. Like, to me, that's okay. That just makes it a drama. I'm cool with Mulan being a drama. I think it is. See, to me, Mulan, the animated film, is a dramatic piece, except for the fact that they add in silly characters so that kids can have moments of laughter. So that's why, to me, it actually leans more toward drama than it actually does comedy, even as an animated film.
Yeah, I guess I just prefer, like, I don't know if I've said it, but to me, in my personal opinion, The Jungle Book has been the best of the live action adaptations. And I liked how they balanced drama, but it also had, Bill Murray provided a lot of the comedic relief. So I like it when there's like a blend.
See, like to me, that's a natural blend, right? You just had like kind of a funny character that was part of the story. Mushu was definitely an important part of the animated story, but like as we saw, not 100% necessary to tell the story. Whereas like you can't tell the story of the Jungle Book without Baloo. So
that's true.
Sidekick characters that aren't 100% necessary, in my opinion, are usually made to sell plush toys and get kids to laugh, and
it would have been annoying if there had been a character named Mushu who like tried to be the comedic, because it wouldn't have worked. Because then the whole reason he worked is because he was able to hide in her outfit and be obscured from view. So if you had like a side character, it wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
One thing I was going to ask, because I guess we're kind of getting to that point. One of the complaints I saw or heard before I even watched it was her transformation, how it's almost like a scene was missing. Did that bother you? Or like, she goes from being Mulan to her, whatever her new name is, which is another thing I didn't understand why they changed it. There's no like build up. You just cut to her in outfit and her, in her armor.
Yeah. Now in the animated film, we have a beautiful sequence with reflection. Like the visuals during that musical number are amazing, and right after that, I believe is her transformation in that version, right? And we kind of get like that 90s music video soundtrack, which is a little weird, but it is a great moment of seeing her transform.
Yeah,
it's a little weird to me.
And there were a lot of weird edits, like not to jump too far ahead, but there was another really weird edit where it's during the first battle and she's trying to save her squad and the guys are in the mountain.
Yeah.
She's like running towards the mountain and then it cuts to her having already set up the, distraction and having set up the helmets. And it was just weird. Like there were just a lot of moments that I felt they completely cut out material that kind of made it feel like a jump cut. And the transformation, and then that was another one where I was like, whoa, she's on the mountain already and has all this set up. And if you're going to do that, you have to some kind of transitional scene, like cut to them for like for 20 seconds, just so you feel like some time has passed. But it was like cut to her immediately running and then to being on top of the mountain. And it was just kind of a weird.
Yeah. Gosh, this film. What did you think of the female villain edition in the live action version?
I mean, it was interesting. I don't really get why I guess I didn't understand her motivation, because at first I thought, like, I didn't really understand what made her change near the end.
Yeah. Like,
it was very quick. It was like, no, we're alone, but together in this. Come with me, join me and we'll rule the galaxy as, sisters or whatever.
Yeah, it felt like a girl power thing, but like,
and then
like
you
said, why did she all of a sudden make that decision?
Yeah, and then she confronts her, and she's still saying, "Nope, this is who I am." And then she turns into an eagle and distracts it was almost like something was missing, or, but I didn't mind it. Again, I could see if you were a huge fan of the original, being like, "No, I guess I missed the eagle." I mean, I guess in the original it was just an eagle. But I mean, it was fine. I thought it was interesting. I guess I did like that scene where she confronts Mulan. And she's like, you're hiding something, and you're gonna die being a liar. And she doesn't kill her. She just conveniently destroys her armor. So I was fine with it, I guess. Although that scene had a really weird thing too. I don't know. I guess I was so bored at points that I kept noticing more editorial stuff. If you watch it, she has like CGI water dripping down her hair. It was really weird.
Oh, really?
Like some of her hair was really wet and you could tell, but then there were certain strands of her hair where it was oddly like CG. And I was like, that's a very odd thing to spend time. Unless I'm wrong, maybe it was just a weird
bizarre
smooth
lighting
motion
or something. Yeah.
Yeah, but it happened several times. I'm like, why would you take the time to CGI water dripping from a character's hair when there's some, I don't know, there were just weird things like that kind of took me out. And again, maybe it's because I was kind of bored at points, but I actually kind of like that scene, I guess. of her and like she stops her from falling into the lava or whatever, which was subtle, which was kind of nice. Didn't have it. It wasn't like as soon as she got hit with the thing that, the water collapsed and it was like, oh, I would have died. It was more subtle, I think, that she was kind of trying to save her and also trying to get her to reveal herself.
There's a moment in the animated film that features an arrow that I wish was in the live action film. And there's a scene with an arrow in the live action film that I wish was cut out. The scene in the animated film featuring an arrow is during the I Made a Man Out of You, where you remember they shoot the arrow to the top of that pole and they have to climb up there to retrieve it. I love that sequence. I love her ingenuity of how to get up there by like wrapping the weights around each other to straddle the pole that way. I love that. I like that. She had so much more ingenuity.
And then they use it in the end too, so it's almost like a setup for how they scale the walls of the castle. Near the end.
I wish that we had that in the live action. It was like that. To me, the animated film did a better job at showing how like clever and smart she was, even right at the beginning of the film when we see that little way that she gets her pet to help her do her morning chores by.
But she doesn't need it because she has chi.
Because she has superpowers. You're right. She doesn't need it, and that's a problem.
Negates.
But yeah, and then the moment.
What did you think of her acting? Before I forget,
her acting. I wasn't.
I've seen people say like, "Oh, she's so wooden," but to me, it was just she wasn't given any thing to work with. Like, just, I mean, what do you do as an actor when you have such little to really work with on an emotional level or a comedic level? It was just, I don't think the actress was bad. I just think she was given nothing.
Her performance didn't stand out to me in either way. Like, I wasn't like, oh, that's good acting. And I wasn't like, oh, that's horrible line delivery or anything. She was just like, she was what she was. And it was fine. Yeah, I'm very indifferent on her performance as Mulan.
Why did they change the name? Because, like, Ping. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's not accurate because in this, she's not even Mulan. It's, again, I'm horrible when it comes to this stuff, but it's like something Mulan. So maybe it's an accuracy thing. Did it bother you that they removed the love interest and B, the love interest as the general?
Yes and no. I miss that character because, once again, that Donny Osmond character sings one of my favorite songs in the animated film, but that song isn't in the live action movie. But there is somebody like in that role of training these guys. So I would have liked to have that character, but at the end of the animated film, it's another like girl gets the guy in the end sort of situation, which I know Disney's trying to stray away from for good reason. Yeah. And so we don't have to deal with that now without that character. But I think that character could have existed without him being a love interest, but that probably would have made people even more angry if he was there and the two of them didn't end up together.
Yeah, because that was probably the weakest part of the original Mulan for me. And again, I didn't grow up with it, but in watching it, their relationships felt so forced. I was like, this is probably the worst because it's just there was. I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like, I think it was Mushu who was like, you like him.
Yeah.
Like, they've had one scene together and he was being a drill sergeant It just felt like that at that time, they were like, we have to have a love interest. We didn't really write it in. So it just felt very like forced. Yeah. And I get it. It's a Disney movie and, in the end he follows her, but it just felt awkward to me in the original because it just felt like nothing really earned it. I guess that'd be my only real complaint of the original is that I didn't feel that it just felt like it was tacked on because they felt like back then they had to always have it.
It was at a time when that's how Disney movies ended, right? And now we're the complete 180. It's like, no, the girl doesn't need the guy. And,
they tease it though, because you think it, because they're on the bridge or she's about to go back home. And you think it, that her and that guy are going to have something. And then they kind of just don't. And I was like, I guess, like, again, I could see if you were a fan of the original, you'd be, but that's probably why they took him out of that role. Cause they thought like, okay, if we have the character, they have to do the love interest, cause then people would be mad. Like, so you have to, if you're going to remove him, then you don't have to have the love interest.
And then,
It also would have
then
been
they were
weird,
like,
yeah.
and we can't play that song because if we have that song without that character, that'll anger people. Like, I'm joking, but at the same time, these probably are conversations that happened. It's
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's funny.
And the other thing I thought was and again, maybe it's because Mongolians are, I don't know, is it offensive now to use them as villains? But the fact that it's Rorons, which I think is the weirdest, maybe it's an actual name of a group or something, but it sounds way too much like moron. It's like the Rorons, the Rorons. It was like, I think Angry Joe made that joke because it just sounded really weird. The Roron, like it sounds like a mispronunciation. Hey, at least they gave the bad guy more depth. I will give him that. They kind of like, because he's like, oh, he killed my father. I'm like, okay. I don't think that was in the original, so at least there's a
motivation there. Yeah. Oh, I forgot to mention the other arrow thing in the live action film that drives me nuts is that battle at the end when superhero Mulan kicks an arrow at a speed that is not possible into the villain's chest and kills him.
I didn't even get it because why did he like thought he grabbed it? And it was almost like an aha moment, but I didn't get what the aha was.
Well, throughout the film, we've seen him grab those arrows and save himself.
Right.
And
but
so we thought once again he did it, but in reality, no, she kicked it. So
what was the reason why? That was the thing. Like, was it the chi?
Oh, yeah. He had superpowers too, right? I mean...
what was the reason that he didn't catch it that time?
Oh,
like,
he was already down, right? Like he'd already been knocked down. I just think he was weak at that moment. That's all. I took it as.
There's just a lot of weird moments like that.
You can't be 100% accurate. So he's like, the one time he misses, it's fatal for him. So.
I'm kind of glad they have that moment because when he fell into the smoke, I was like, come on. Like, you can't do that anymore, Disney, have the villain fall. So it's kind of a callback to how they used to do that all the time, where it's like the villain falls or like Up, all these movies where they have the villain fall. There's so many. I think there's a montage on YouTube of all the villains that like fall to their death, but they like are obscured from view. Was this PG or PG-13? Do you know?
I'm going to guess PG-13. I don't know for sure. I mean, it has to be. This is a graphic film. It's not like rated R graphic, but it's not a kid's movie by any means. It's not like, oh, I just showed my 7-year-old Mulan the animated film. Now let's watch the live action. No, don't. Is what I would say. Not only like don't because it's super graphic, but also I just think a kid would be tremendously bored watching this.
What did you find graphic? Because I actually thought the opposite, where I was like, not that I wanted it to be graphic, but it always bothers me in movies when they have swords and they're slashing people
and there's no blood. Yeah, so that's how they kept it Disney, right? There was no blood and stuff, but I mean, these were angry battles. There was no, hiding the fact.
But even in the original, I guess they killed quite a few people.
Yeah.
But even in the original, there's that moment where. I like that kind of subtlety where it's like, I don't know, I thought it was a cool scene from a writing perspective when it's the two scouts that run into the Mongolians.
Yes.
Who are, the Mongolians or the Rorons, formerly known as Mongolians. And they send the two guys to go back to camp. And he's like, how many people does it take to deliver a message?
Yes.
And then he aims the arrow and it cuts to black.
Yeah.
Like, oh. Cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like a moment like that. But this film overall, I mean, would you suggest people pay $30 to see this? I would not. I would say wait till December if you want to see it.
I guess that's where it's tricky because now I feel like even if you liked it because of the whole, I even felt a little dirty after what kind of came out. Even though it's kind of been known, but I just felt kind of awkward, because I was like, do I want to be supporting this if it does turn out that there were a lot of shifty things that, that they, I don't know.
Yeah.
So there's that aspect where it's like, do you want to support a movie? Was it right? Was it wrong? Filmmakers do kind of have to acknowledge the provinces where they shoot. Maybe they could have made... I'm not sure when they shot it if what was going on in the news is going on then. I'm not sure when they shot it.
Yeah.
I guess they could have took a stance and not thanked them, but I feel like that would have. I don't know. There's just a lot of. That's why it's just tricky with these kind of things.
It's you can never do anything right situation, right? I mean,
Yeah.
They probably would have banned the marketing in China if they didn't get a thanks of some sort. So it's tough times we're living in, man.
Supporting aside, like if I just remove that issue completely, like potentially supporting, bad ethics. I mean, I don't know. Like if you probably not, because it's like if you grew up with the original, I feel like you're not going to like it at all. If you didn't grow up with the original, you're going to be bored because there's really it's just very flat. It's just a very flat movie. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't do any one thing other than the moment with the father. Other than that, or the moments with the father, it doesn't do anything like amazingly well to where it's like, it's not a great movie, but there's X, it's just like, I mean, not worth $30 in my opinion if you're by yourself.
Yeah.
If it's like if it's like me, where it was me and my girlfriend, it's like $15 a person. If we'd seen it in theaters, we would have probably gotten some popcorn. So I guess maybe it's worth it. I don't know. It's a hard one to recommend because I was very bored.
I would say wait till December. Wait till December when it's available. If you have Disney Plus, wait till December is what I would say.
I just kept checking out. Like that's I guess that's how I'd summarize it. And that's not a good sign when you're not invested. When I wasn't necessarily looking at my watch, but I was like,
you didn't care about the characters, and that's never a good thing. So.
I kind of cared about our little posse. I kind of liked that they
were fun. I'm glad that they gave them, a bit of individual personalities. Although I will say they do a much better job at that in the animated film.
Yeah, and I guess I lied when I said I didn't. Maybe the only other funny moment was when they're all taking showers and the guy's like, I need someone to volunteer for night watch. It's me. Yeah. Like that was fine. That was funny.
And it was smart. It was a smart way of getting around that and doing it different than the animated film. So... Yeah.
And I guess they did have the ancestors kind of like as the eagle or the phoenix.
But it wasn't like ghosts like we have in the animated film.
But it was kind of that kind of like whenever it popped up, I was like, oh yeah, that's the thing.
Yes, that was a little confusing. Yeah,
it's just like if you're going to introduce something, make it a little bit more integral into the plot. Maybe rather than that thing again.
It just felt like too many people were involved, right? It was like too many cooks in the kitchen sort of situation is what it felt like. It didn't feel like a singular vision, shall we say.
What's probably a even worse thing a sign of the quality of the movie even more is even though I really did not like Aladdin, like I think we discussed that. I had a lot of issues with it. And again, I grew up with it. I would rather watch Aladdin over this because even though there were a lot of things I really, really, really didn't like about Aladdin, the remake, there were at least a few things I liked. I thought it was funnier. There were a few lines of dialogue I thought were pretty funny. I liked the sequence with Genie, the initial sequence, Friend Like Me. I think I liked it because it was a long time ago. But there was more... Like, it's like a scale where it's like there was a lot I disliked, but there was at least some that I liked.
Well, you had passion about it, which I think is always important, right? Like, even if it was not good passion, at least you were passionate. I always say that. I always say I would rather hate something than have no opinion about it, because if you hate something, at least there was something very specific about it that somebody had a vision and, they did it and they made it, and I may not like it, but at least that vision is there. Whereas if
you have the Cave of Wonders and you just have, I guess, more visual, even though I think Mulan looked pretty good. It was filmed.
I think the animated film looked better. I get what you're saying. It did look good, but there were more moments in the animated film where it's like, gosh, that's beautiful. That's just beautiful, I don't know. Anywho, maybe the summary is like it could have been worse. Like that's the review. That's the review they're going for.
Could have been worse.
Could have been worse. I won't disagree with that. Before we get to some trivia, I just want to touch on the fact that I think it's very cool that they brought Disney legend Christina Aguilera back to do another new version of the song Reflection, as well as a new song, Loyal, Brave, True, which I always just call the Oscar song. They write a new song so that they can be eligible for an Oscar.
And they gave her an actual outfit instead of a business casual or upper casual.
Listen, when it comes to the original music video, that 90s nostalgia is all over it, and I'm all for it. That's all I'll say about it.
Where do you want to film it? Let's just do it at Epcot, the China Pavilion. What do you want me to wear? Just like you're going to a business meeting. Like, I actually really liked the new. I was surprised it was a new song because most new songs.
It is a good. I 1,000% agree. It feels fitting and it doesn't feel out of world, and it's a good song. But
it was so good that I kept thinking like, yeah, and I agree. But it was good. And I don't know if this makes sense, but usually when I'm so pessimistic now, whenever a song comes out that I like from a movie, I'm like, okay, that was probably a cover of the original that's also amazing. Yeah, I was like, oh, this is an original song. Yeah, oh, cool. Yeah. And even the cover of or not cover, what do you call that?
The redo, re-recording, the remake of Reflection.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, you have to do something different. So I guess it was more just power inner voice than the
good for her. Well, the orchestrations were a lot better in the new one. Yeah. But good for her for like the longevity of her career, man. We're talking for a long time now. That was like really, obviously she did the new Mickey Mouse Club, but that was before Genie in a Bottle and all that stuff. Reflection really started it for her. So,
was it really? Yeah. I'm not too familiar with her discography.
It was the beginning for her. And
had she had, what's the other huge song by her?
Like What a Girl Wants is big.
Yeah, was it before that?
Yeah, Genie in a Bottle was first. So like her solo album hadn't come out yet. It was really, yeah, it was really her proving. Basically, the story goes that they wrote this song and there was a specific note that needed to be hit that was hard to hit, and she was like, I can hit that. And she recorded some Whitney Houston song that hit the same note, and that's how she ended up getting the job. And it was it really sparked her career much more so than the new Mickey Mouse Club. So
was the person who sang it in the film, was it the same note?
Gosh, it was Lea Salonga singing it in the film. My guess is no, and if it wasn't as powerful as, it was probably more airy than the way Christina sings. They wanted a powerhouse voice for the radio version. So
she has an amazing, I rarely sit through credits when I'm watching a movie at home, or I get up and walk around or whatever. I was like, or I'll just kind of tune out, I guess is the better word. But because the songs were in the credits and both of them were really well performed, and I really like Reflections and I really like the new one, I was like, well, it's probably the first time I've actually kind of stayed through the credits just to hear the music, because this is much better than the movie.
I was just going to say, and maybe the best part of the movie, I would say, is Christina Aguilera's performance of the two songs in the credits. And that's not meant to be a joke. I genuinely think that may be the case. So
maybe that's worth $30.
That's where it went.
Go to YouTube.
Fantastic. Well, in any case, that's enough about Mulan. I once again, I really didn't want to kick this film while it's down, but I also need to just speak the truth about it, because otherwise, what's the point, right? So at this point, folks, let's get to some trivia.
Do you know the answer? Get your brain gears churning and play along. It's trivia time.
Alrighty, Mark, do you want to hit me with the trivia question first, or shall I hit you?
I'll go. The original animated version of Mulan was a first for the Disney company. In what way?
Ooh.
In 1999, specifically. In 1999, the animated version of Mulan was a first for the Disney company.
I mean, was it a first Chinese character or lead Chinese character?
No. In 1999, it was the very, very, very first of a long line that's still continuing today, DVD release. It was their first movie that they released on DVD.
Really? Interesting.
According to IMDb, in case anyone's like, I'm actually... I didn't dig into the archive.
That's interesting, though. 1999. Okay, that makes sense. That totally makes sense, because I would have been in high school working at Blockbuster Video, and I was there for the VHS to DVD transition, to the point that like we had so few DVDs, we didn't have like DVD drama, comedy, animation. It was just like a DVD section, and every movie we had in DVD was in that section. So 99 works for me. That totally.
Well, Disney was kind of late to the game, if I remember. I think it was like more 95, 96, 97, and they were holding off because they were still milking the Masterpiece collection on the VHSs.
Yeah. Fun.
Yeah, so that was their first, and I think, that was their first. And I think Snow White was their first Blu-ray release.
Oh, that sounds right as well. I believe that. In any case, my question for you, Ming-Na Wen, who performed the original speaking voice of Mulan in the animated film, has a cameo in the live-action reimagining. Where do you see her?
Can you give me a hint?
No, I can't really.
Well, I'm going to assume. Okay, I'm going to assume.
It's toward the end.
I don't know. I'm just going to say a generic person in a crowd because that's usually what they do.
No, so what they did was at the end of the film, after Mulan defeats the villainous invader Bori Khan and thus saves all of China, she is presented to the emperor and the people of the imperial city by a woman played by Ming-Na Wen. So, and as the two make their way down the lustrous aisle of the Emperor's palace, an instrumental of reflection plays in the background. So yeah, it's kind of cool that they harkened it back to the animated film in that way. I appreciate that. I thought it was a nice touch. And
I like it when they do that. And I even hear that you can hear her utter the words, "Mine was better." No,
I was going to say, don't tell me that. What? But I mean, she could have, and maybe should have. I don't know. That's Mulan, folks. That's Mulan 2020. If you checked it out, I hope you enjoyed it more than us, because truly, that's the point, right? These are supposed to be enjoyable.
Critics liked it a lot more than, I think it's one of the better critically reviewed.
Really? I really don't read reviews, so.
No, I think it's, I'd have to go through it. I think maybe Cinderella and Cinderella and Jungle Book were better, but in terms of the others, it's one of the higher ones, critic-wise. Audience-wise, not so much.
Yeah. Well, excellent. Well, Mark, before you go, is there anything you want to plug, or where can folks find you?
You can just find me, I always forget what the URL is, but just Google Yesterworld Entertainment, and you will find my channel, and on Twitter, I think it's just Yesterworld. It's pretty easy to find if you just search that, or I have all the links in the descriptions of my episodes.
Fantastic. And definitely check out his videos, because they are always wonderful and so well researched, and I personally love them.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and talking about Mulan. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I guess. Well, what's the next? I
don't know. Is Cruella? That was delayed, though, wasn't it? The next live action remake thing? Maybe Cruella. Whatever it is, you'll be here for it, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thanks a bunch.
Yep.
Now, folks, if you haven't listened to last week's episode of DCTC, be sure and check it out, as I conduct an interview with an animator who's had quite the surprise and career path. And this upcoming Wednesday, I chat with an Imagineer who worked on some iconic Disney Parks attractions. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by subscribing to Disney Coast to Coast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget, it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. And if you'd like to hear that interview with the Imagineer early, become a member of the DCTC community by visiting patreon.com/DisneyCTC. That's patreon.com/DIZNEYCTC. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com.